The animals, trap, trap, trap till the cages fall. The cages fall, the day is new, and everyone is waiting, waiting on you, and you've got time. Think of all the roads.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast entitled Couch Potatoes Unite! Exclamation point. This is a podcast based on a blog of the same name because, well, it's catchy. I'm the blogger in question and the moderator of this podcast. My name is Kylie and I love TV. If you feel the same, keep listening and or checking out the blog at couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com as you're bound to find some common ground or something you like. For at Couch Potatoes Unite, we're all about the wonders and the unique long-form storytelling of the small screen. If you haven't already figured it out, we have been producing more podcast episodes beyond our initial pilot 3. Because the panelists and I have lives behind the podcast, however, the episodes may come at irregular intervals to start, so subscribe to the blog or the podcast via iTunes to stay on top of brand new episodes. We have several episodes already published discussing Downton Abbey, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Doctor Who, and Once Upon a Time, and more episodes are in the works covering other shows such as Game of Thrones, for example, and hopefully many, many more. If you don't hear your show in this podcast format, though, check out the blog. I still write reviews, and I'm always seeking new podcast panelists, so if you have any interest in joining the discussion, say hello. We have a Facebook page, a Twitter, follow us at CPU Podcast, and an email address at couchpotatoesunitepodcast@gmail.com. Of course, you can always subscribe to the blog and sign the guest book or comment on posts you see. We love feedback as long as it's constructive. Constructive feedback. Today we're around the water cooler and discussing Season 3 of Orange is the New Black, which was released in its entirety to the Netflix streaming library on June 12, 2015, with a total of 13 episodes. Which means, for the record, that the show is legally available to Netflix subscribers exclusively, as it is Netflix-produced original content. As you might recall from this podcast's second episode, Orange is the New Black is a comedy drama about a Manhattan woman whose past catches up to her and for which she must serve time in federal prison. The show is set in New York, though flashbacks for each of the prisoners who comprise the cast of characters sometimes venture away from New York. Taylor Schilling plays Piper Chapman, who after becoming engaged to be married to a man, learns that she must serve a short sentence in federal prison. She has been implicated in the bust of an international drug cartel, of which former girlfriend, Alex Voss, played by Laura Prepon of That 70s Show fame, was a member, and who Piper aided and abetted in the throes of young love. At first, Piper finds that she is wholly unequipped for prison, though some, like unabashed, self-proclaimed lesbian junkie Nikki Nichols, played by Natasha Lyon, are kind and helpful to her, while others, like newly reinstated kitchen head Red, played by Captain Janeway herself, Kate Mulgrew, show her no mercy. At least until Red and other characters warm up to Piper, which for some is quite the adjustment. In addition, the guards can be drunk on their own power, the prison counselors play favorites and are easily offended, and the prison population is divided by race, unofficially but automatically. If all that weren't complicated enough, Alex is sent to the same prison, and Piper's emotions are deeply conflicted, as she reasons that only Alex could have pointed the finger to get her in trouble in the first place. At the same time, the old attractions between the two women remain undeniably present. For a more detailed plot summary, listen to that prior podcast episode or check out our other Orange is the New Black entries on the blog. If you didn't already know, you can click the floating box at the top right of the header, the picture with the TV watcher, and search for any blog entry or prior podcast episode, which I think is a very handy thing. For now, our illustrious group of Orange is the New Black panelists, namely Krista, Kristen, and Nick, have returned, along with two new but familiarly voiced panelists who wanted to join in on the discussion to discuss the new season and to speculate on what the next season might look like, as Netflix has, of course, renewed this wildly successful program for a fourth season, likely to be released in June 2016. Before we get into the discussion, I want to take a moment to take the panel's temperature. After all, as we all know, sometimes a TV show can take turns for the better or the worse, or could continue its level of awesomeness or lack of, depending upon its story evolution. I also, of course, would like to introduce our new panelists. Before I do, as always, it should be noted that every single one of our panelists have viewed the entire show through the end of the third season and will likely discuss sensitive plot points. So, for those of you who are not caught up on Orange is the New Black, listen at your own risk, as there may be major spoilers. Well, welcome back, Krista, Kristen, and Eddie. Well, Eddie's new. Nick is old. Welcome back, Krista, Kristen, and Nick. We just did. There's so many people.
It's a tongue twister.
It's a tongue twister. I feel like I should change my name so it's not starting with a K. I can be Jane today. I'll just be Jane.
Well, that's just confusing.
Yeah.
So no. Okay, welcome back, Krista, Nick, and Kristen. How are you all doing today?
Splendid, Kylie. How are you?
I am excellent. So, I'm going to take your temperature, and then we'll welcome back. We have panelists who have appeared in the other show's podcasts, namely Eddie, who you might know from Once Upon a Time, and Amanda, who you might know from Doctor Who. So, I'm going to take the old panelist, the tried and true panelists' temperature.
Thank you.
And then we'll talk to Eddie and Amanda for a second. So, we want to talk about where you were last time, but I have a slightly new sliding scale as far as what your interest in the show might be nowadays. Similar characters, slightly different perspectives. Okay? So, just for everybody's sake, I'm going to have you answer this question. What is your interest in the show nowadays, and how would you rate it? Are you addicted, like Nikki, obsessed and or profitable and wanting to be a badass, like Piper, paranoid because it's like someone's out to get you, so you're watching to blend in, like Alex, you're watching it to spread the gospel of kindness and acceptance, like Norma or Sophia, it's like a new religion to you or for you, like Leanne, it's like an old religion to you or for you, but it's new to you, like Black Cindy. It's a way to search for meaning and connection and not get day drunk, like Poussey or P. You're watching it because you do not want to compromise your sense of self, like Big Boo. You're watching it because your friends watch it, like Tasty, Janae, Maritza, Maria, Red's family. Are you watching it for business reasons and to better yourself, like Flocka? Are you watching it as a guilty pleasure, like Bennett? Are you watching it to get tips on how to keep your child out of prison, like Aleda or Daya? Are you watching it because you're lonely, like So-So? Are you disinterested but wanting to take part in something or wanting to feel like you matter, so you join this podcast, like Kylie or Red? Are you disinterested but looking to cause trouble, like Gloria? Are you disinterested, period, but what the hell, you like trying new things and you're trying to turn over a new leaf, like Pennsatucky? Or are you just crazy and or looking for new inspiration for your prison fiction, like Suzanne, aka Crazy Eyes? It's a lot of choices. There are a lot of characters. So, Nick, you're cringing. I'm going to start with you.
I'm cringing because there are a lot of choices, and I don't see one for me. I just really like the show. It's a good show, and it's
well, you were obsessed like Piper last time, in the sense that you
but
kept
I don't want
watching.
to be associated with Piper.
Who does? Who does? Who does?
Oh no!
Up until the last episode, I didn't mind her of this season, but then
Yeah.
So
We'll get
Nick is
we'll
done.
get there. We'll get there.
So, do you have a choice?
I'm like Red cooking a new food. I'm making up my own. I mean, the 47 you provided.
Very specific.
not
Like her at her
47.
dinner. It's just an enjoying show I like to watch. I'm not obsessed
Red's
or
dinner was
addicted.
cute.
I want to be invited to Red's dinners.
So, are you wanting to feel like you matter?
Sure.
Okay, because that's what that refers to. So, Nick is Red, but I have a feeling it also is because Red is his favorite.
Right.
Right, okay. So, Krista, last time you were between Big Boo and Poussey, but they had slightly different states of mind last season.
Yes.
So, where are you this season?
I'm watching it because my friends do.
Okay.
Like Tasty. I was less engaged this season than season 2. I really wanted to know how that all worked out in season 2. Like, I binge watched the whole thing and was driving to the end. And this season, I kind of had to, like, I was talking to you about it. Like, does it get better? Am I going to be able to finish this? Because I remember, like, episode 4 or 5, I'm like, this isn't going nowhere. But it did pick up and it did get better. So I will continue to watch it.
Okay. We've answered that question's coming later, but good to know.
Sorry.
Kristen, last time you were also obsessed like Piper. Are you still there?
Again, not wanting to be associated with Piper.
Wow.
I have moved up. I am addicted like Nikki, not only because I love Nikki and I'm sad about Nikki. I love this show. It's like I binge watched it. Like I waited a couple days so like I wouldn't have to deal with like the stopping of the streaming when everyone's watching it. But 2.5 days, done.
The struggle is
Addicted.
real.
I know, right? First world problems. I have to wait for the masses to watch it, so I have fast streaming service.
Well, good temperature taking. Now, Eddie, you spoke first. Eddie just can't wait to get into this discussion. We talked about that a little bit. So, Eddie, how did you come to watch Orange is the New Black? What made you start watching? How did you find out about it? What kept you watching, and which one of these things are you?
Wow.
That's a lot.
I started watching because I was tired of hearing you guys talk about it, and so I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm gonna start watching. And
Peer pressure for the win.
right. And then I started watching it, and I fell in love with Red, and she stole my heart like right off the bat. I love her character. I love how her character develops. I kind of started hating her in this season, but she got better. So I would say that I'm a tasty. Like, I'm just in it for my friends. But I do love Nikki as well, but I wouldn't say I'm obsessed with it.
Well, Nikki's addicted.
Well,
She's
right,
got
true.
that heroin addiction
Right.
thing going on.
So, but I do like the show. I didn't like the format of this season so much, but I like watching it.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about that in a second. Amanda, same question.
Well, I started watching as soon as it hit Netflix, season 1. My husband did not want to watch with me at first, and I started watching, and then he sat in on one, and then we had to go back and rewatch the whole season again. I don't know that I'm obsessed because I'm not really an obsessive personality. I just really like things. But what I kind of like the spread the gospel of kindness and acceptance of Norma, because I think one of the things I'm really passionate about this show is that it deals with women and women characters in this very deep way that we normally don't see. And I'm very passionate about that. I think the success of this show is teaching the people that have the money to make these shows that they need to make more with women who are interesting, because usually lame sex object roles is all you get. So I love that, and I'm a little evangelical about the fact that this show does go so deeply into the character development of all of them, and it's one of the things I love about it. So I guess I'm obsessed about that part.
So maybe you're between...
There's so many things. There's
I
so
know.
many feels. The feels are real for this show.
The feels are real. It's true. How did you find the show? You said you just started watching it. But how
Yes,
did you find it?
because I can't remember. I think we had watched something else that was original Netflix programming, so then it popped up because I'm sort of a Netflix addict. So I saw it was coming, and I was like, oh, this looks like an interesting premise. I had heard some buzz about it. So I sat down and watched the first few and was just captivated right from the bat. You know, just the characters coming together in these stories, and loved it. So it was I don't know. Love at first watch, I guess.
Got it. Cool. Well, welcome, Amanda and Eddie.
Hi.
Welcome to the circus that is the Orange is the New Black podcast panel. That's kind of an exaggeration. It was not a circus. Okay, so let's get to what we're all itching to talk about, because I feel there is a variety of thoughts on this panel. What did we think of season 3? And you can compare it to the first 2 seasons if you want. What did you like and what didn't you like?
It leaned more into the comedy genre this season, especially with Piper's Business. It had a lot of like farce type of scenes, and I think it made it easier for me to be like, I don't have to watch the next episode just yet. And then a week went by, and I'm like, oh, I forgot Orange is the New Black is still there for me to watch. But I was still enjoying it when I watched it. The reason I hated season 2 the most was the V storyline, but that's what made me want to watch the next episode. So they took out my least favorite thing, and then I liked it less somehow.
Well, I just think anything having to do with Piper is just death to interestingness. Like, she's so lame as a character. Like, I'm so over her. And so, like, I don't care about her stupid panty sniffing thing. Like, it was stupid, and I didn't like the new girlfriend, whatever weird thing that had no character development and was just lame. And had an accent, and that's why she was hot or something. I don't know.
She kind of popped out. I know it's a big prison, but she popped out of nowhere, and then we find out she's leaving. So what?
Right? Why is
like
she even
she
there?
Just got there.
Yeah.
We're no longer friends.
Yeah, I didn't care for her or anything to do with her. I thought it was just there to create false drama. And this, oh, I like this other person, even though I should like my girlfriend that got me in prison in the first place. It was trying too hard to make conflict for me, where there wasn't any, and then there were other stories that were so much better that we could have spent more time with, that were real, true conflict.
When is her sentence up? Where are we in the timeline?
See,
here?
okay,
End of the summer.
That's really funny you say that. That's why I think Stella got introduced, is because her sentence is almost up. So Stella all of a sudden is bringing out this badass side of Piper, and so Orange is the New Black is going nowhere anytime soon, and no offense, it'd be kind of weird if we have Orange is the New Black without Piper, even though we all hate her.
I don't think we need her.
I don't think we do either, even though she was introduced as the main character. But I think Stella came along to bring out this badass side of Piper so that her sentence is going to get extended somehow.
But
And then therefore more. I know it's really far.
extending our sentence.
I mean, it's really hard to grasp, but that's the only reason I see Stella.
The other reason I don't need her anymore is that she's already diverged so much from the character
that she originally was.
That I don't. It almost is like taking away credit for how this show shows what could happen, because that's not what happened to her. It went the other way. She got out, went on with her life. She's still married to her same husband in real life. So it's almost like I'd rather have just completely new characters.
I don't like how she goes from one extreme to the next extreme. There's no like character development of let's slowly show the audience of like what I can or cannot be. It's just strictly from one side to the other.
And her relationship with Alex is just kind of confusing and weird, and Alex did not stay mad at her very long for putting her back in prison, and it was just kind of like...
Well, that was one of the things that I struggled with this time, because, so if you recall, at the end of season 2, well, at the beginning of season 2, Piper gets to this point where she might be put up on the stand, and Alex is first telling her to lie so that she basically would be protected and they could stick together, and because this guy was so dangerous. And then Alex flipped the switch when she testified and told the truth, so that she ended up in witness protection. Then by the end of the second season, Piper had Polly essentially narc on Alex, who was in witness protection because she had a weapon or something.
And she was violating her probation.
Yes,
Correct.
Exactly. And so Alex ends up in prison, and we think that's because Piper can't live, at least the way I took it was, Piper can't live in prison alone. She can't stand the thought of being alone. And because Larry was going with Polly at that point, I felt like that's why Alex got drawn back. But then Alex comes back, and Piper just for some reason, loses interest in her very, very quickly, which I think part of that comes from Alex's paranoia about having been found out, and I forget the name of the drug cartel guy's name. She thinks she's going to be found out, she gets paranoid, and Piper acts like a spoiled brat in my brain. Yeah, I don't remember. She acts like a spoiled brat, can't stand her, and then the Stella person comes in. And it seems so random when it happens. I mean, we all knew she was on there. They advertised this Ruby Rose appearance for a long time. But then it just seems so forced and kind of generic what they did with those two. And it actually made me like Alex more and dislike Piper more.
Yeah.
Where last season I don't know if I could say that I loved Piper, but I was kind of like, why is Alex necessary, you know?
And it turns out Alex was paranoid for good reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
For very good reason.
But it was
Let's
directed
take
at
a
the wrong
vote.
person.
Who thinks she's dead?
I
Jump
don't
to the
think
last
she's
episode.
dead because she's Instagrammed being on the set, unless we think she's just appearing as a dead body.
Well, there might be flashback
Yeah.
stuff. There might
There could be
Rosa was in this season.
That's true.
That's true.
I love Rosa.
I think I think
Miss
she's
Rosa.
dead, or at the very least, very close to.
Could be.
I don't think we'll be seeing much of her in season 4, just because she will then be in sort of a coma or something.
Well, and I don't know what you do with her. From like, Piper has cast her aside. Like, what is her story arc then inside the prison? Like, why is she there? We've already seen the paranoia. I don't know what story you tell with her.
You would just use her to tell somebody else's story, like getting Piper out of this weird mob boss mentality.
Right.
But I don't know what else you would do with her. I also don't know how believable it would be if she wasn't shot by this guy, because they were in one room together. Nobody else could see them. There's like no guards, and the guards that are there are dealing with something else.
The link.
So,
Right.
like, it doesn't make sense that she's could get away.
Well, the thing that the other woman who was paranoid, it's Kit from A League of Their Own. I don't remember the actress or the character's
Lori
name.
Petty is the actress.
Thank you. But the fact that I don't remember seeing her at the lake. I don't think so. So I'm thinking maybe she's going to come in at the last minute and, like, save the day.
Could be.
So, because they seem to have a good connection once, Alex realized that this other woman is way more paranoid. I think she's going to come around.
No, because she did tell a story about being like in the CIA or something.
Yeah.
So maybe she thinks she's trying to do her patriotic duty and like saves her.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Interesting prediction.
Interesting.
But then what do you do with Alex if she is saved? I mean, Amanda raises a good question. Where can her character
she
possibly
can
go?
It doesn't
Tell her own story, I guess. I mean,
Or is Alex now going to redeem Piper from going down the road that Stella has kind of led her down? Because it seemed like Stella was used as that kind of, literary device, if you will, where she's the catalyst for Piper's big mob panty boss change.
They could just wrap up Alex's story and then she'll be gone. Like, she doesn't have to be in the whole season.
Right.
Nikki wasn't, Bennett wasn't.
That's
They
true.
could
That's
very-
true.
potentially Alex could be like, you're going to get in trouble and stop her before she gets a longer sentence
Yeah.
or something. Because I believe what she's doing is like illegal / against the rules of prison.
It is.
Well, yeah.
I mean, in in a way that would actually get time added to your sentence, not just like
Yeah.
A shot.
in a shoe.
Right.
Which that's what Eddie thinks.
Yeah.
Is that she's gonna be found out.
Which is what I didn't... When I heard how short her sentence was in season 1, I was like, what ridiculous things are they going to keep doing to extend it so
Yeah.
they
Right.
could bring it back? And I like what they did is that season 1 was not that long a time period for the show. So we've already got 3 seasons out of this sentence. I don't need them to extend
And they
it.
still have like almost 6 months left.
Yeah, because we just saw Mother's Day, so we know...
Mother's Day was the beginning,
Yeah.
and at the end of the season, it's like July.
Is it? Okay.
And then she went into prison for her, 15-month sentence in September, late September. We still have enough time left to get probably 2 seasons out of her initial sentence.
See, and I just think it would be interesting if they did something like bring her out of the prison, get her out, and show her then trying to reacclimate to life outside of prison, because I think that's an interesting story, because she's had to so fundamentally change who she is for survival. But underneath it, I mean, she's still a spoiled little rich snot.
It'd be interesting if they took her out and then she tried helping her friends get out.
Well, I don't even know, because I don't think she does that. I don't think
that's not in her character.
She's so completely in it for herself, and I think that is an interesting thing, because she forms these relationships with these women, and then she gets out and she just forgets about them, and I think that's so real and so human that I think that would be more interesting to actually see that, and then seeing the life go on after she's gone, because she's very insulated in a lot of ways. She is not completely one of them. And she finds a way to exist, but these other people have very different lives than her, these other women, and it's so interesting to see how, when you watch all of their backstories, you understand how they got where they did. Mm-hmm. And hers was, I'm so, upper class white that I don't understand that this is a bad thing I'm doing and that there will be consequences, because she's never had consequences. Whereas the rest of them, it's like, this is just the only life they know. And so, we see it. People get out and then they come back because they don't know how to exist outside and there's no options for them. Whereas she has a lot of options because she has a lot of social capital.
And fun fact, in the book, Piper's a very different character in the book. She's much more pleasant. It literally ends with her leaving prison. And there's no epilogue, there's nothing. And I think she says in the prologue something along the lines of, this was a very finite time in my life. There isn't an epilogue because I don't know what happened to these women. Something along those lines. So she was just happy. She got out, she got married, she started her business or whatever, and she was done.
Yeah. She cashed that social capital and walked away.
Right.
Just to remind listeners, Krista is the book reader on the panel. She actually read Piper Kerman's original book, so...
I think we all read books, though.
Yeah.
Orange is the New Black, Nick. Just a couple things that I thought of. First off, I don't know that Stella, this is responding to Kristen's point earlier, I don't know that Stella was actually the device that pushed Piper into panty sniffing. I think she making the panties for the sniffing, I think she came up with that on her own. I think Stella was the one who capitalized on this momentum and kind of used that to con her out of the money she was making. Because if you recall, when Stella was leaving prison at the end of the season, she had built Piper's entire commissary account. Number one. Number two, since the original question was what did we like and what we didn't like about the season, and Nick mentioning that a couple of our characters left mid-season or before the end of the season, one of the things that I didn't like at all was Nikki's departure. She's one of my favorite characters, and once she left, it just felt flatter.
There was a hole.
There was a definite
There's
hole.
a hole.
Well, and she's such a charged character. She's got a lot of passion. She has a lot of demons that she's sorting through. She has a lot of charismatic relationships with a lot of the other different characters, including Piper. I think she grounds Piper, and Piper started this whole business scenario after Nikki got shipped to Max. And I hope she comes back. Has anybody heard anything about this?
I haven't.
Okay, it might be too soon.
I don't mind it, though. I know if she's your favorite character, it might be harder, but it really helps tell the story. You could just be taken away to Max. You could just slip into it. I think it was important to have even a more high-profile character have that happen to. I think that made it a little bit more powerful. And I think maybe you should feel that it's missing, like something's missing, because she is.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times you feel like these characters have all this power, and they really don't. I mean, and we're reminded of that so many times this season, where you think they're in control, like Red, and we thought she was in control, and then we realize really she doesn't have anything, and then she even gets, the kitchen back, and he's like, oh, you thought I was going to give you actual power? And it's just such a slap in the face, but, she's at the mercy of the system, and she can only operate within that, and it's heartbreaking, because she really is passionate about the food. It gave her purpose, and yet... in a heartbeat, it's gone.
One of the funniest parts of this season, other than Piper's business, was Red going around to every table and apologizing.
Yeah.
Saying, this is not my food.
not
This is
my
not my food.
And I'm just like, because she would.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, that's her reputation. That's her love and her
This
passion.
did not come from me.
No.
Her identity.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that they started growing the food in the garden just so that she could have that special dinner amidst the corn and Healy, which was weird.
I want to talk about that.
Let's talk about that. So this season we saw a little bit, I'm going to call it a flirtation, maybe you want to characterize it differently, between Healy, who of course is, he's been trying to form connections with the different prisoners to various levels of success, and has this Russian mail order bride, which we can talk about as
I
well.
think she was Ukrainian.
Well,
From
Ukrainian.
Ukraine.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Geographically, it's that region. And then Red, who kind of starts off flirting with him, it seems, so that she ends up getting the kitchen
Yeah,
back.
she uses it as a means to an end.
Yes, but does it stay that way? Because I didn't feel like it was...
I also don't feel like that was her end game when she started to, like, I don't think she was just trying to manipulate him.
Okay.
I think she was asking a friend for help a little bit in the only way she knew how, since she's been in prison for so long.
Okay.
That's how I kind of saw it.
I think it started with the translation,
Mm-hmm.
and then she felt bad for him. Like,
Yeah.
he really is trying, and she's doing nothing. The wife is doing nothing. She's wanted out. She wanted to come to America, and then that was it.
And how bad do you have to feel for someone when you're the one in prison and they're not
Right.
in prison to actually still be able to feel bad for this guy who gets to walk out?
They're not in literal prison. They're in their own kind of prison.
Right.
I don't know. I still feel like Red's flirtation, at least at first, it started as a means to an end. But I feel like, like what Krista said, once she was the translator, I feel like that kind of pushed things in a little slightly different direction. And especially when Healy gave Red the box of corn after her corn was eaten, I was touched. It's like he just wants to be loved, and she, I think, is looking for that since her husband is not the most upstanding, emotional guy in the world.
That's true. I think she
took
kind
him
of...
off her list.
Yeah, kind of kicked him to the curb
She-
after she found out her store was closed.
Yeah.
So
And so maybe she's, she's starting to get that for Healy because, he's very compassionate towards her, and I feel like they do have a strong connection, but I don't know. I also think Healy's kind of enjoying the fact that Red is returning his flirtation, and his wife is also starting to come around as a result of Red being the translator. So he's kind of got two girls now, and it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I suppose that's true.
How does someone feel about his story arc from season 1? He's not a likable guy at all.
No.
And
No.
even in this season, some of the stuff he does is still not awesome, but
Yeah, because he gets the other counselor fired.
And
Like,
since
I
He was
liked
better.
her.
He was
liked her.
threatened by her because
Yeah.
she was better than him.
and the business was so-so,
yeah.
Yeah.
There's plenty of where you could easily still hate him, but I think it's because you could see his own internal struggle. Like when Sosa told him he was doing a bad job, maybe it's just a well-written character. Then,
Well, and I
right?
think he's just so old school, right? Like, he doesn't quite get it. So he's on this older system of, this is how you deal with people. And we have more insight into how those things work now. He clearly doesn't understand mental health. He just really
Yeah.
doesn't. He's so misinformed. And so it's just that old school, suck it up cupcake, just deal with it. And if you can't, then, here are your options, but there's
Which
not
is actually
a whole
a
lot.
very sensitive portrayal of mental health, sort of society's attitude toward it.
Absolutely.
Where he's sort of one faction, and then So-So becomes the... She was more likable this season, I think, than she
Yes.
was last season.
Yeah.
And certainly more relatable in the struggle that she was going through. So I think she really provided a gateway for people to say, oh... And yet another one of their stellar written societal commentary type points.
that conversation between So-So and her friend, when her friend came to visit, was like, it's so badass that you're in prison.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And she's like,
What's her best friend's name? Meadow?
Meadow.
Yeah.
Meadow. Her name is Brooke. And her friend's name is Meadow.
And weren't they like dating at one point?
They had an experimental sort of liaison, if you will. That's what she tells Nikki. But they were still ultimately best friends who like to do the hippie protesting thing together. Mm-hmm. Yes. So well, I wanted to hit this question really hard because we all kind of vocalized our dislike for Piper. Is that consensus on the panel? Do we just hate her, or is there anybody here who...
I was fine with her this season up to a point. Like, we weren't dwelling on her storytelling that long.
Thank God.
I actually thought of you in our last discussion while we were watching it, because I was like, there's a lot less Piper.
Which I liked.
I think Nick would be happy.
And it was... so we could see these other characters. We got a lot of backstories from characters from season 2, like that have been here, that we just didn't get their backstories. It was a little weird that 2 of them ended with somebody plummeting to their death.
What was the second one?
Norma and, I forget her name, she was selling fake acid.
Oh,
yeah.
Flocka.
Yeah. Like, oh, that's kind of similar, but not
Sorry, I forgot about the Flocka.
exactly the same. But I loved getting more of Norma's story. I love the character of Norma. I wanted her to, like, step in with Sosta so many times, like, actually rise above just them adoring her little normal cult. Like, I wanted her to have that moment that Poussey had in the finale, like, where she, like, destroys the toast or whatever, but she didn't get that moment, or have that moment.
Well, I don't think Norma and her evolution as a character has quite got her to that point yet, because what we know is she's very, very shy and has the stutter. That's what we got a Norma backstory this season, which I actually really enjoyed that.
That was my favorite.
Yeah, where we kind of learn that she has this sort of debilitating stutter. She's very self-conscious about it, and in the 60s, in the time of peace, love, and sit-ins, she met sort of a hippie cult leader who wasn't especially nice to her, and she got married to him along with several other wives.
The scene was hilarious.
Yeah.
But what we find out is that he kind of draws her out of herself a little bit until she nudges him off a cliff. And then she lands in prison, but she's, back to that very mousy, silent Norma. Maybe this cult of Norma, or this religion of Norma, will get her there, but I don't know that she's there.
But I kind of liked how she took all the lessons she learned from watching this man get this following in this cult, and she applies it then to her own. So, she's kind of taking it on, and she knows what she's doing. I mean, she knows how to manipulate these people because she's been manipulated, and I kind of liked watching her take some of that power. And she does it so well with just that little knowing little smile, and she just lets people believe what they want to believe. And I think that's really interesting. But she's not... I think this is the first time she ever felt any sort of power in her life, and so she's not willing to give that up. She's not going to tear Toast apart, even though she knows it's wrong. At the same time, she finally, I think, has agency for the first time in her entire life. That's a big thing to give up. That's not something you're just going to toss aside, necessarily.
I liked the exchanged glances between her and Red.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because there was so much subtext in that. And Norma knows that Red knows what she's doing, but they've got a total hands-off policy when it comes to it.
They're such besties, though. I mean,
yes.
It seems like, Red's going to be there to support Norma, and,
she will.
and
She's
vice
family.
versa.
When this inevitably falls apart.
But I want Norma and her Red's relationship to be more on equal footing instead of
I agree.
Norma being Red's subordinate.
I think it'll get there now. I
guess I just wanted that resolution in this season.
I felt like they kind of had that at the very end when they were on the dock together. I felt it was more equal footing.
Yeah, I felt like there was a little bit, like it's Norma's resisting her a little bit, and Red's like, all right then, okay.
Yeah,
I see how it is.
Yeah.
And I respect that, if you stand up to me, I'm going to respect that a little bit. Mm-hmm. She's not going to respect everybody that does that, but the fact that it's her friend who's not going to be pushed around so much anymore, she actually does care about her, I think.
Yeah, because Norma's been there for Red through thick and thin when she lost the kitchen and everything, too, and I feel like this is now kind of turning around and she's being repaid.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about Daya.
Okay, let's
She's
talk
so
about
excited.
Dia. I know, Krista just perked right up.
So
let's talk about Dia and Krista. What do you want to say?
that whole situation is screwed up.
It is extremely dysfunctional. Well, Aleda and Dia's relationship has been, to say I liked the backstory, what I mean is I don't like what I saw, but I liked that they had it. That we had this glimpse of Aleda and Dia when Dia was a child. And it was just the two of them. Because clearly Aleda does feel some maternal instinct toward her, but she's so skewed. She's so skewed in what real life is, I think. It's just kind of...
She tries her hardest. I think she does.
I
think
think
what
she
she
does
is just wrong.
Yeah.
Way
I think
wrong.
her heart's in the right place, but she doesn't act on it.
No.
I think
She's too selfish to actually do
I don't
the right
think she
thing.
knows how.
Exactly.
Like,
It's the cycle.
Right, like she wants to, but she just doesn't know how, and she thinks she can figure out how to do it, and then she just does it.
Well, and she wants it all to be about her.
Yeah.
You know, her daughter's life. I mean, when she destroys all her artwork, I just wanted to
Oh.
die. She gets so upset, right? Like, first she brings her to camp because she just wants to get rid of her. She doesn't want to have to be responsible for her for however long.
Mommy
I don't
is a
think
party
that's
to go
why
to.
she brought her to camp.
Oh, I felt
I
like it. She was like,
agree.
go
I
away.
agree.
When she, like, shoved her
Shoved her.
aside and was like, I'm out of here, I think she was like, Mommy needs to go.
Like,
have
mommy
someone with
needs
her.
a vacation.
I thought she said that to get Dia to stay.
Oh, I didn't
I
feel
don't
that
think
at
so.
all.
Really?
I
Why did she
actually...
break down and cry in the
No,
car?
yeah, I do. I'm with you, Nick, because if you recall, there's a glimpse of a conversation between Aleda and Aleda's mother where she's talking about, I think I want to enroll Dia in this art camp. And Dia doesn't want to go. It's true. She doesn't want to be separated from her mother because her mother, let's face it, is kind of a woman about town, if you will. They don't spend a lot of quality time together. And I think you're right. I'm actually on Nick's point with this. Yeah. He
I'm
feels
like
outnumbered.
50-50.
Yeah.
I think that she wanted her to go and learn and grow, but I also think she was very much looking forward to having this time without her.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that when she came back, she saw that Dia was clearly involved with new friends and loved her teacher so much, the one who
Was
inspired
nice to her.
this artwork and was nice to her, and then Aleda turned her selfish switch on again toward Dia.
Right.
And I just think, I think, Amanda, you're right, and I think, Krista, you're right in the sense that Aleda's clearly her character struggle is she is ultimately a very selfish human being. But there is this nugget of her that we sort of saw grow a little bit where she does have love for this child who is now her co-prisoner. And I think we can easily characterize her as not a great mom at all. I mean, by any sense of that measurment.
That's an
So just
understatement.
measure her by good intention.
Yes.
Well, I don't mean to imply that she doesn't love her at all. I think, I don't know, maybe because I'm a teacher, like, I see these things happen where parents just do not know how to give their kids what they need.
Sure.
And so she has this idea of maybe I can do that, but I also see a lot of parents who really struggle letting their kids lead their own lives and have things that aren't about them. And so, like, maybe I'm just projecting things that I've seen from, kids and parents that I know. But I kind of felt like there is that, all right, here's possibly a chance for her to go and have this experience that she wouldn't necessarily have, but there's stigma there because she is, she's not necessarily the camp kid, like the stereotypical camp kid. This is a special program that she's doing. But I think she wants the freedom. Like, it is exhausting to parent, but at the same time, I think she has a hard time having it not be about her. And I think the jealousy does kick in a lot. And I think we see that in, like, the current storyline then when she starts milking Pornstash's mom for money. And it's not even going to the baby. Like, now she's doing this to her grandchild, where it's about herself more than anything else. It's here, how can I capitalize on this? And I think, although she wants freedom, she wants it when she wants it. And then when her daughter wants freedom, she doesn't want her to have that. Like, I need you to be dependent on me because I need to be this force in your life. And that's, I think, why she destroys the artwork, is because that's a thing that's going to pull her away and make her not dependent on her mother anymore.
I think it goes down to the saying, how are you going to love somebody when you can't love yourself? She doesn't know how to love herself. She's had a rough life, so she doesn't even know how to love her daughter. And I guess the whole camp situation is, I think she wanted to do the whole parent thing where she wanted to get rid of her, but I think the reason we saw her crying is she knows deep down inside she will never be the parent or be able to give her what she's getting at camp.
I just also think she didn't need camp to get rid of her. She could just leave. Like, her mom was there. We've seen her do that in other seasons with the younger kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe, I'll get a break from her might have been like the deciding factor, but I think she thought, this camp would be good for her.
That's true.
That's
true.
Something to gloat about.
Yeah,
I am a good mother. Look what I did.
Just keep in mind, too, that the camp flashback set us up for the resolve on the storyline where she was trying to bilk the money from Pornstash's mom. If you recall, she calls Pornstash's mom in the end and tells her that the baby died.
I was so furious.
Right.
I was so mad.
Well, and she changed it to, it was, they actually had a girl and she said it was a boy. Like, she totally skewed the story so that way Pornstash and his mom can't trace the baby because they have the wrong basic information, too.
Correct.
Right.
And that was infuriating because I truly think, even though it's totally screwed up and wrong a little, the baby would have had such a better life. A little bit. With Pornstash's mom.
Well, especially
A little
considering
bit.
the current situation.
Way better life and would have had more opportunities than being the, 8th baby with Cesar?
Yeah.
With
Cesar.
Cesar.
Is this just a stupid solution? Like, Pornstash's mom wanted to help. They couldn't just be like, why don't you be the foster mother until, you're the guardian until Daya gets out of prison?
Well, because Pornstash's mom wanted to legally adopt the baby.
Because she thought she was her real grandmother.
Yeah.
Right, but they couldn't have come to some other agreement.
But didn't they tell her too that Pornstash is not the father?
Yeah,
That
they know,
and
but
she still
wants
wanted to adopt the baby. There is no blood relation, but she still wanted to take care of it and give it a good life. But again, once you have that legal status, Daya maybe wouldn't have been able to get her daughter back.
But to see Mary's, what's her?
Steenbridgen.
Her. And in the room with folding the diapers and everything,
Yeah.
and painting and making, and then that phone call, it was heartbreaking.
She's a wonderful actress.
Yeah,
She's
she made that part very, very likable.
It was so hard to watch, and then for a minute there, I thought that's maybe what really happened, and that would have made sense. I meant to just see it was another game, and it was another lie, and
Doing what she thought was right for Daya to keep the baby.
which was the wrong thing.
And she even said, I did it for you, not for the baby.
Well, what's even more heartbreaking is the very final few moments when we see that Cesar's house is raided, because I guess he's also a drug dealer. So much drugs. And
We knew he was a drug dealer.
did
Yeah.
we?
We did.
Yeah.
Yep.
I forgot.
That's
I
why both of them are in prison.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, either way, they found him and they took him away, and the baby disappears into the hallway, and
With Child Protective Services.
yes, and they may never see her again anyway. So,
But how, were they to know that in prison? They didn't know that, she just thought, hey, he'll hang on to the baby for the next however long, because Daya's sentence isn't much longer. It's relatively short comparatively to others. So it's just for a little while. He'll only hang on to her for a month, couple months to a year, and then it'll just be Daya and the baby and Bennett.
now where did Bennett go?
Right.
I don't mind the storyline that he left. I don't find that unbelievable or anything. I thought it was weird that once he was gone, he was just gone. Like, we didn't even see him somewhere else. I don't know. I just wanted it revisited at least.
I agree with that.
Very
He
out
was
of
just
character
disappearing.
for him.
For him to abandon the baby, it seems out of character. At least he should be sending money or doing something.
Right, it's like he took the crib out of the truck, left it on the side of the road, and then he just took off. I mean, I understand.
That was just rude.
He didn't. I understand he didn't like the situation with Daya's, extended family with Cesar and all the siblings, but really, you're just gonna abandon both of that? Just seemed awkward, and I almost wonder if it's because he's now on How to Get Away with Murder on ABC, and that show has taken off. I'm obsessed as well. So, but he's such a big character to that show's plot and storyline. Is there not time for him to do both, and this was more a means to an end for his contract, or was it character-based?
Well, I think there is some character basis for it, in that he will go to jail if people find out what he did. We know this. That's the consequence, and if he cannot face that, then he does have to disappear, because if he takes the baby, he's taking responsibility, and ultimately there will be a punishment for that.
But Caputo knows that it's his baby. Bennett confessed to Caputo, and Caputo said, "Shut up.
Right.
We don't want you to go to prison. Keep your mouth shut."
Yeah, I think I don't have a problem with the fact that he left. I totally agree with you, Nick, on that. But the fact that we absolutely saw nothing, and that the decision kind of came out of dime. Bennett's been very deliberative all throughout the seasons of Orange is the New Black. Everything for him is very analytical. He's also very, very in love with Daya. He's tried everything he could up until this point to make it work. So, I mean, granted, the whole family situation, quote unquote, that Cesar has set up is very scary, but just to be here I am one day, gone the next, felt
him deciding
false.
based on that was weird. Like, it should have made him want to be there more to protect his
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's a very out of character decision for him just to pick up and leave after proposing to Daya, trying to make it, a connection with her family, and then he just up and goes. It's out of character.
See the actor, or do we just see the truck and the crib?
We see the truck and the crib.
So, that makes it even feel more like a scheduling thing. We were gonna do, 2 more scenes, but we couldn't get him, so we'll make it obvious he's gone.
That's why I'm wondering outside circumstances.
It probably is, but I really hope they get a chance to revisit that.
I hope so. I want a reason. I want a legit reason.
Or at least maybe he has a change of heart, or if he does, 2 shows at once, because other actors are doing
Oh my
that.
gosh, Gillian Anderson was doing 3 at once.
I know.
Maybe
Rob
it was in
Lowe's about to
another
be in 2
country.
pilots this fall, so...
Maybe there'll be some sort of flashback to that day, and there's something else that happened that we don't know about.
That's
Maybe
fair.
Bennett's
Right.
the reason the FBI did the raid. Maybe he tipped him off as a way to legally get the baby.
I
could see that happening.
I was expecting him to be in the hallway.
I was too.
Oh.
Waiting to get the
We
baby.
might see him in the hallway in the next
Maybe.
season.
Do you
Nice,
think?
Krista.
I don't think I love saying his name. Pornstash's mother's gone. I
don't think so either.
I
She's
think
too big of a character.
no. I mean, I think she
person like
with
that.
the whole baby.
Well,
I don't.
I don't know, because they closed off that storyline. Like, she knows that she's not biologically related.
she thinks the baby's died.
Yeah. It just
She'd
seems
have
like
to she'd have to decide somehow that I don't believe what this woman is telling me, which she could along the line, but...
All she needs is a phone call from Daya or
Bennett.
Yeah.
Why would Bennett call Pornstash's
Bennett has no idea that that's
So
happening.
Bennett was
or
totally in
Daya's mom
disagreement with
could
giving
change her
away
mind.
the baby, I thought, too.
Yeah, he was.
One of the things that somebody mentioned, and it might have been Amanda earlier, or maybe all of us said it at one point, I've had a lot of sidebars with you all, so, is that there was no real villain. And Eddie mentioned this before we sat down. There was no real villain. The story structure in this season of Orange is the New Black was a little bit different because, first of all, we didn't have a character around which the other characters could sort of galvanize and form factions and fight the system or whatever. It was more this larger looming corporate privatization of the prison, and we kind of saw that through Caputo, but that trickle down only happened situationally with the other characters. Then on top of that, we didn't have sort of the historical flashback by flashback, episode by episode. We had some of those, but there were also episodes where there were montages or overlapping segments of flashbacks of several characters.
I liked those.
You liked those?
Yeah.
So
Did
and
we
Krista,
have a villain in season 1? Was there
Pornstash.
Pornstash,
You
and
think-
then also Pensatucky was kind
Yeah.
of a B villain.
So,
Yeah.
I could see that there were villains, but with V it was, this is the villain.
Yeah.
It felt more like a surreal, like a Darth Vader type, like that everyone hates this one person, even amongst her family, if we're going to call it that unit. They were fought about the dynamics, whereas I don't think everyone in the prison focused on Pornstache, or everyone in the prison focused on Pennsatucky. Like, it was the own thing. So now, I've never been to prison, so I don't know which it's more like. But it did not seem as realistic to have one person.
Thank you for making that disclaimer, by the way.
We were wondering.
No.
Yeah, it was a little dicey going there. We thought no, I actually disagree as far as Pornstache is concerned.
I think everyone will.
For at least the first half of the first season, Pornstache
He'd go after Red, too.
yes, he went after everybody.
Yeah.
He's misogynistic. He was sexually charged. He clearly
Was
loved
supplying drugs to prisoners.
Correct. He was clearly after his own aims, and I think that he had
When he ruined
different
her songs.
levels of effects on different characters. Some more than others, but ultimately I think he really was the villain. And then Pennsatucky got kind of dragged up into it because of her notoriety.
Maybe it was just that V was in the prison constantly, where
I think it
and I
was
just-
easier to look at her as a villain than Pornstache because he had authority over everybody, where she was on the same level as.
Well, I think everyone
more like
was
a betrayal.
Right.
Everyone was working together against Pornstache, where everyone worked differently against V, where they were either afraid or staying away from her or trying to help her.
I think with V we developed more of what the major groups were in season 2. That's where we found out where everybody lied in the prison. Where first season we were just this is a prison, and it was more of the system versus the prisoners. Where season 2 was we went internal, and it was people against each other.
Now this season was more system versus the system
Right.
in some
Yeah.
capacity.
Right.
And I was okay with not having a clear-cut villain. It seemed more realistic to me that there are some groups or family units within the prison that are getting along with each other, and there's individuals like Piper who are being a little crazy, as opposed to, everybody's against V in some way, shape, or form. I felt like the storytelling was more realistic. I felt we got to get a deeper dive into a lot of the characters, too, like Norma's backstory, which we hadn't seen. I felt this season enabled us to really get to know these characters in light of what's coming ahead next season, and probably having a whole new influx of dozens of people.
So then in this season, the system won. I mean, that was they doubled the prisoners. Everything's
They
gonna
shipped
change.
in all those
They-
prisoners from
everybody.
Max.
Right, but you don't think the
Ooh, Nikki could come back.
That's what
She
I was
could
thinking.
come-
Now
that's
that
what I
Stella
would
went to Max, I'm thinking maybe Max is getting crowded, so they'll switch and bring
Stella
Nikki
went to
back.
Max?
Could be.
But you don't think
She
that,
did, after Piper
Piper
planted all the evidence on her
stuff
that
with
the
she
driver
found.
Right.
I thought they lost. I mean, they just completely failed in their job at the end. There isn't going to be horrible repercussions for the way they run this. All these new prisoners are showing up, and there's still no guards. There's 2 guards.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I feel like this is their downfall. The
I
corporation can't
feel
run
like
it.
Litchfield lost to the new bigger
Right.
system that took them over. So
Yeah,
now there's a
because-
whole new regime in town, and Litchfield as we know it is tanked.
Right, because I think where the profit comes in is the number of prisoners and how they run it. The question becomes whether or not Caputo and the son of the dude that was running the corporation.
Danny Pearson.
Mike Birbiglia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The question about this influx from Max is whether or not Danny and Caputo knew about it or not, because they sort of did that pushback.
The original Litchfield guards knew about it because, I don't know her name, but it's the female black guard. She said today, something about today, they can't afford to lose us today.
Oh, she did.
She emphasized of all days, today they can't afford
That was
not
well
to have
delivered
us.
and well written, because
We didn't.
I thought that could have easily just meant, if we all left right now, you're screwed, whether
Yeah.
they were coming in or not,
that's
how
because
I
it's all
took
the
it.
same
Yeah,
day.
that,
And I
yeah.
think that's how they wanted it.
I think so too, because once she said that, I'm like, oh, I get it. But then, we see the Martha Stewart character who is now coming to Litchfield. I'm like, oh, maybe it's because there's going to be a lot of publicity. No, then the buses came.
Oh.
And I'm like, damn.
It's Nina Sharp. That's
Nina
what
Sharp
Yeah.
from
I'm gonna call her.
Fringe.
Yeah.
Blair.
They they definitely knew. They were putting in bunk beds. Like
Yeah, the guards knew what was happening, and they knew of all days, if they walked out today, they would have a bigger bargaining chip because Litchfield would be screwed.
I can't believe the guards stayed as long. I don't know. I know none of them were able to find other full-time jobs. Like, losing all your benefits and half your pay, that is horrible.
They got all knocked down to 50% of their hours, lost all of their...
Yeah, I can't believe it took that long for... None of them left.
Mm-hmm. It's very unusual in this day and time, and kind of it gets to these whole right to work issues and things of that nature. I mean, oftentimes prisons which are run by the state, that is, are unionized, and there was a lot of talk about them starting a union. They didn't even... Yeah.
Yeah, love that.
They didn't even have to get into the whole union busting issue so much because this corporation swooped in and did that.
Well, and I think a lot of times prisons are set up in areas where there just aren't that many jobs.
That too.
And so they have to try and sell their house to who? Because nobody's moving there because there are no jobs. Like, people get stranded. This is what happens in our country. Political soapbox, whatever. I'm not going to go too long on that. But, I mean, this is a reality, too, is that that's the only job that's available to them. Where else are they going to go?
Right.
You know, they're trapped, and people don't... It's psychologically, you don't want to give up even half a job for no job. I mean, that's just really hard to allow yourself to do. And, I mean, it's how people become victimized by
And a lot
the
of them
system.
have been doing it for so long, like, I don't think any of them could go and do anything different. Like,
And
they've just...
That's true life. I can speak to this.
Like,
that is true life.
They've just come and they've been guards for so long, like, they just...
Well, and I think
That's
a lot
not
of them...
fair, though. I mean...
Right.
A lot of them take pride in it. I mean, they're like, there's a right way for this to be done. The veterans, I mean, they're in their own way passionate about what they do, and they're invested in it. I mean, it's why they get so insulted and so hurt when they bring in the new people and they don't train them on anything.
And this might be far-fetched, but I think some of them are, like, have a passion for that prison. From a prison town, from Ionia, which has 7 prisons, people get, like, really attached to their... Yeah, it has 6 now, but... They get attached to the place that they work, and they're very devoted to that prison and how it runs.
Well, I also think they get attached to some of the prisoners, especially the ones that are there for
and
longer.
they, you know, one of the guards said too, you know, I know these women. I know their names. I know the relationships between them. I understand the family groups. These new people, they don't. They only, you know, like Angie, how she got released by mistake instead of the girl Sarah, who shared the same last name. They didn't know her. It was the new people who made the mistake because they're not trained right.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it reminds you that working in a prison, you're still dealing with people, even if they're criminals. There's that human element, and that corporation is not acknowledging that. And it's downright dangerous because bad things happen when you don't know the people you're working with. You have to be successful, I think, in that context. And you know, they know that because they work there. You know, people think, oh, how hard can it be? You just stand there and make sure they don't, like, beat each other up or whatever, but that's not really what it is. It's navigating those interactions.
I want to touch on one major plot line, which is the Pennsatucky storyline, where she is sort of befriended and then victimized by one of the guards, and Big Boo, who she's formed an odd couple friendship with, sort of swoops in to her aid. What did we think about that particular storyline this time?
I feel like it was needed.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, I'm sure we'll talk about this when we get to the Game of Thrones panel, but, I mean, shows like Game of Thrones, because of the time period that it's set in, the rape culture is essentially, that was the norm against women at that point. And I feel like, you know, Orange is the New Black, they wrote Pensatucky's storyline this season in such a way that it needed to be addressed. It really showed it in the modern perspective. They did it the right way, and especially when the rape act actually took place in the back of the van, they focused on her face. And I felt that was such a strong thing to do. Because they showed she's emotionless, but she's still crying because it still hurts. And I feel like it was needed today to really balance everything out that we see on TV.
Her backstory was
Heartbreaking.
just devastating.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah, just her being raised by her mother, like, just wait it out. It'll be over soon. And that's totally what she does, and she does not... I mean, we see her get the boyfriend that, like, actually teaches her that, you know, sex can be pleasurable, which is, like, such a revelation for her. She can't even believe it. Like, she thinks it's weird, and she's very uncomfortable, and he helps her see that there's something better. And then that gets taken away from her, and she's back to the same old thing, and we see her, you know, be victimized then, and then we see it again, and I think it's interesting. I mean, I like that we see her face and we see her turning passive, because it's one of the things, you know, I keep seeing articles about it as these things come up and these things are shown in the television shows that, you know, it's what people don't understand about rape. But why didn't she fight back? Why didn't... You don't sometimes. Your body just shuts down, and you can see that, just the light go out of her eyes, and I think she performed that very well. Because what a tough, horrible thing. And, I mean, I think the sad part is we all knew it was going to happen. I mean, with the scene with him making her pick up, what was it, the donut with her mouth, like calling her a dog. Like, that's the moment when we, as the audience, know that he's capable of doing this. Like, it's so dehumanizing.
Yeah.
And so terrible. And yet, he has the power. Like, she let herself forget for a minute who's in control, and like you see him realize that he has that power, because he didn't know at the beginning. He thought they were equals, and then he realized, I can do whatever I want, and there will be
no
repercussions. He thinks there will be no repercussions.
Did he even realize he was raping her the first time? Like, is that... Cause...
The first time they were intimate with each other, it was consensual. But then at the end, when it was in the back of the van, that was him. Oh, you want it? Okay, well, you're going to get it. And that's not at all what she was looking for. And I felt it was a very strong point. Because, again, like with Amanda reading a lot of the news articles about it, one of the big commentary is how in today's society, you know, women are taught how not to get raped. And, I mean, I've heard the stories, you know, from my mom, other female friends of mine, female educators. Here's what you do not to get raped. Where men in our society are not taught, don't rape. And I feel like that's such a crucial point that's missing from education today. And this was a great example of how it's in the forefront. You know, Pennsatucky was taught how to react to it, but the guys were never taught, it's a bad thing, don't do it.
Well, that's the sad part. She wasn't even taught how not to.
Yeah,
she was taught it's going to happen, and just sit there and wait for it to be done.
It's a fact of life, and it's not a fact of life. It shouldn't have to be.
Right, it's just awful. But
it's such a good social commentary on where we are as a society on that element.
Well,
today.
and I think some of the outrage and the discussion is so interesting, because I think even a few years ago, we wouldn't be having these conversations. So I think it shows social progress, but at the same time, sadly, these things do happen. And it was about time on this show, honestly, because that's a very real reality. Like, how had we not seen any of these women, statistically, more than one of them has been raped, you know?
I really, really liked how Big Boo handled it.
Yes.
Oh, it was so kind and so understanding, and it was something that we knew her character was capable of, but we hadn't seen a ton of.
And especially towards Pennsatucky in particular was very powerful.
I wonder, moving forward, if more will come of this because of Maritza. Is the new driver.
Possibly speaking. I know that I really appreciated this storyline, not only for the social commentary that it inspired, but also because the evolution and the well-rounding of these characters. Pennsatucky I did not like in the first season, and never thought I would like her. And I just felt there was so much depth and sympathetic sort of perception added to her character that it was, again, a testament. We talk about the writing a lot, a testament to the writing, that somebody who was sort of villainous season 1 has now become one of the most sympathetic characters. And you see that through the eyes of Big Boo, who would be the very first one to condemn her in the past, but now is like, no, you know, it doesn't matter who you are, this is not right. this is not good.
Right.
You know?
Well, you learn that Boo has that sense of just justice, like what is
Oh, yeah.
right and what is wrong, and this is just clearly wrong, and it's her job to help kind of take over and pick up the pieces of that, which is sweet.
It's also smart structurally. You are dealing with this really dense topic, but using Big Boo in that relationship, there was like comedic moments, so it was easier for people to watch and not just be like, this is too hard to watch, I'm not even going to get the story. It helped make it more watchable and entertaining, if that's the right word.
Yeah, you have to give them those emotional breaks, because
Yeah.
otherwise it is
It
too
gets
much.
too heavy.
I mean, it is the heaviest of topics. I mean, you just can't get much worse than that. But life is like that. Even with every tragedy, you find moments of lightness in it, and I think, it's really effective storytelling to allow that to happen.
In the same way that Rose's death was almost,
A happy thing.
notorious.
Yeah.
She did a Thelma and Louise, didn't she? She drove off a cliff.
No,
she killed V.
Corey.
She took V with her.
Yeah, she took...
No, but she drove into a quarry.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot
We
the
don't-
quarry part.
But they mention it like
They
one
don't show
line.
it.
Oh,
They
that's
mention it
right.
really briefly for like 2 seconds.
It
and
ends
then
with her killing V, and then in season 3 they
say that's why they had to get a new van.
Oh, that was so good. Oh, my gosh.
Moderator Kylie here. Of course, our panel had much more to say and could have talked forever about Orange is the New Black's 3rd season. We compromised, however, and settled for recording a second podcast episode about the show. To hear more of our thoughts, speculations, and predictions about Orange is the New Black, stay tuned for part 2 of our conversation by checking out the blog at couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com or the Couch Potatoes Unite ! Channels on YouTube and on iTunes next week. After all, the lives behind the podcast sometimes beckon us away from our more in-depth discussions. The panel, including Kristen, Krista, Nick, Eddie, and Amanda, wanted to make sure we covered everything in the season, so we reconvened at a later date to discuss everything we didn't cover in the first part, including the stories tied to Morello, Caputo and Figueroa, who reared her head again, Gloria, Sophia, Black Cindy, Soso, Poussey, Tasty, and Suzanne, aka Crazy Eyes, as well as the breathtaking season finale. To stay abreast of all of CPU! Latest developments, remember to subscribe to the blog and the channels, to like our Facebook page, and to follow us on Twitter at CPU Podcast. In the meantime, as always, keep watching, keep listening, keep checking us out, because we always have more to say. And until next time, bye-bye.